And good morning. Finally back with another tutorial, kind of a little side tutorial to the main social media tutorial that I'm doing. We'll be using this aspect of things in that tutorial, but I wanted to kind of separate this out so that it can be a standalone if you're just kind of wanting to know more about how to put your media content behind a CDN. I'd mentioned the other day that I was planning on putting this tutorial up, but I just never got around to it. But we're ready to go now. So anyway, we're going to be using BunnyCDN. If you haven't heard about it, I think if you just go to bunny.net, I believe that's the URL for it. And if you're a new subscriber, I think you get like a 14-day free trial. So you can kind of play around with stuff, but even when you have to start paying, it's really quite affordable, especially during testing. But anyway, just kind of wanted to walk you through how to upload videos from your FlutterFlow project to Bunny. And then, of course, we'll figure out exactly how to retrieve that, and I'll show you how to retrieve your API key for your Bunny library. Instead of storing the key directly inside of your app, we're going to store it on the database side. Now, this particular tutorial is geared towards Firebase users, so all of the codes and everything, all the functions that I'll be using are for Firebase. However, I would think that with some slight modifications, that the code should transcend over to Supabase and other platforms that you may use as your backend. But in any case, so very first thing that you will want to do is just go ahead and create your account on Bunny. And once you get your account set up, we're going to be using Stream, which is Bunny's version of what's most ideal for video delivery. Storage is more meant towards like non-video files, static files, images, documents, things like that. But we're going to be using Stream so that we can take advantage of Bunny's features for video content. So anyway, if you click on Stream, you'll see a button like up in the right-hand corner to create a new library. So that's what we're going to do. So we're just going to call this. Once you give it a name, just select your video storage configuration, whether you want to replicate to different areas around the globe, which this one is default. You can't change that. It has to stay there. But you can select any of these, and then you can see how much it costs per gigabyte to store it. So I'm just gonna be doing the US for this tutorial, and obviously up here in Europe. Anyway, you can select any of those that you want. Once you select one and then you add video library, you cannot remove it, but you can add more later on. Alright, so now we got this taken care of. So we got our library set up here. So what we want to do now, I'm actually going to pop open a new tab here. So this is if you want to use their pre-built player and put it like on a web page or something. There's a lot of cool features in here with this, but it's not what we're going to be using for the FlutterFlow app. If you own an advertising server, or you have a service with an advertising server, you can acquire the VAS tag for that, put it in here, and then you can run ads into your video feed. However, that also does require that you use the API call to retrieve a list of videos directly from Bunny rather than tying the URLs into your Firebase database or elsewhere. For this tutorial, we'll be storing our URLs inside of our database instead of retrieving it directly to the API call from here. So anyway, just keep that in mind. All right, so encoding, if you want to keep the original file that's uploaded, you can do that. It just really depends on how much storage you want to take up. If you want to enable early play functionality, which basically what's going to happen is your video is going to go through a transcoding process or an encoding process, depending on the various things that you select to allow to happen to the video. Primarily for this tutorial, we'll be returning the video as an HLS file. So it's going to encode the video in various sizes, be like 720p and then up to HD, and we may even go to QHD, I'm not sure. But so during that encoding process, you can actually play back the original video immediately, or close to immediately as soon as it uploads, if you want to do that. And if you do turn that on, you do want to turn on enable early play if you want it to be able to play back immediately. I'm not overly concerned with playing back immediately because of how I'm going to configure this, but I'll leave that on, I guess, for the time being, just so we can see how it works. But content tagging is like smart tagging. Once you make your upload and it starts the encode process, Bunny will try to determine from the content what category that your video fits into. It does a decent job. I wouldn't say it's absolutely fantastic, but unless you plan to incorporate a way to tag it when you make the calls, then allowing it to kind of auto tag is useful, at least for sorting purposes. And then MP4 fallback, again, we're going to be using HLS to stream the videos back to the app. But just in case the device that is trying to access the app for some reason doesn't support HLS, it's good to enable the MP4 fallback so that they won't just get an error code. They'll at least get a video back to them. And then down here you can enable the resolutions that you want to encode to, which I don't want that one or that one. That's pretty low too. I don't think I'll do that one either. So we got HD, FHD, okay, QHD, that's what I was thinking. So FHD is what I want. I don't know that I'll go all the way up to QHD or not. I don't think so. Not for this, but you can select whatever you want. But we'll just do 720 and 1080. And then you can also add a watermark. It does take a little bit extra time to encode the video, especially if the video is bigger. But if you want each of the videos to have like a custom watermark, you can upload that here and it'll be present on the video. So it's kind of cool. Alright, so that's good to go with the encoding. We'll keep it that way. Transcribing is if you want to have, I assume this is using some kind of AI, but it can extract a transcription based off of the spoken words inside the video and convert the audio track into into captions, kind of like what YouTube does. So you can do that if you want to. I'm not going to do it for this, but when you do activate that, then you can also activate smart title and smart description, which again, these are just AI stuff. So anyway, it's kind of a cool feature, but I'm not going to use that. And then down here on security, I do want to enable this for now. If I were going into a production app, I would be using a token, an auth token, to be able to play back videos, but for this we're not going to do that right now, so we're just going to enable direct play. And then you can allow domains from which requests can be made, or block domains if you want to, but I'm not going to set any of those right now either. Let's see here. I'm going to turn that off for now. So I'm not going to be setting any of that up at the moment. This is if you're using the embed video, so their video player that they provide. We're not using that, so we don't need that. If we were going to be applying a token for requests, then we would use this. But like I said, we're not going to do that right now. And then down here is your token that you obtain to be able to create your hash in order to sign your URL requests. This stuff is, I think, again, it's only for their embedded player. Yeah, so we can't use it, unfortunately. I would like to be able to use it just to have kind of some encryption on the video, but it only works with their embed, so not too much good for us. All right, and then looking at delivery here, you can choose your tier. Standard tier is really for, like it says, small files, websites, stuff like that. High volume tier is meant for video. So obviously we're going to keep it on high volume tier. And then routing filters, they only let you select this one. So we're not going to select anything here because I don't want to route there. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. All right, and then storage. We set this up when we set up the library, so you do want to turn that on, especially if you're taking advantage of the CDN. So leave that on. All right, that's pretty much it for kind of configuring a few settings directly inside of your library here. Now, if we go down here to API, we're going to be using this stuff here in just a little bit. It's our library ID. We're going to need that. This is going to be the CDN URL that we'll need to be able to access our videos and things like that. Our pull zone is what pulls it through the CDN. And we're going to go there in just a second, and then of course your API key is down here for this library. Each library has its own API key, and then webhook URL will be using that as well. I'll show you all of that in a minute. So let's go to manage real quick so we can manage our the CDN that we're going to be accessing these videos through. So if you have like a URL that you want to add here, you can do that. We won't be doing that. We'll be using the one that they provide us. Obviously, we do want SSL, which is enabled. You can force SSL if you want to. I'm not going to do that for now. Pricing and routing, we already set that. We don't want to do anything there, so that's all good to go. You can go down here to caching. You can use Smart Cache if you want to. It'll kind of determine whether the file really needs to be cached or not. I usually turn that on because it just takes care of it for me, and I don't cache absolutely everything, but regardless, the video is going to be cached anyway. But if I plan on applying anything else to this library, it's just handy to have it turned on. Cache expiration time, that how long their edge servers will store the files before fetching for new versions. 1 month is a pretty long time, especially with an app similar to TikTok, and things are changing a lot. So I'll just set it to 1 day. Let's see here. Yeah, I would leave that turned on. Just kind of keeps things organized. Let's see, cache error response. I'm not going to turn that on right now. Very cache. Let's turn that one on. Save. You can decide whether you want to do all this or not. It really depends on your use case, how you're going to be delivering the content back to the user, or what you're planning on doing. You can use this service, Bunny, for a variety of type services, whether it's a YouTube or a TikTok, or you can let people store their videos on here, private videos, or use it as a storage, like a Dropbox type thing, if you want to do it that way. So a lot of these settings kind of help define that. We are going to leave that on because we're using it for video, so obviously we'll keep that on. And then stale cache allows you to deliver temporarily serve stale files from the CDN cache. So while it's doing an update, you know, after every 24 hours, it's going to reach out for updates. So it's probably a good idea to turn this on. Yeah. But that could be a problem. Cache will not respond. Yeah. So we'll just turn both of them on. And hopefully it'll return what we want it to return without causing too many issues. So, all right, Origin Shield, check this out. This is pretty handy to have. So if that's enabled, all the uncached requests will first be routed through a secondary caching layer. So it can really help to ensure that requests go through the cache, or at least try to go through the cache anyway. You can enable concurrency limits to limit how many concurrent requests can be made to the origin at one time. So you can turn that on if you want to. Just leave it off. Got a screen there. But if you do turn it on, you can come over here and set your maximum concurrent requests at the same time to the origin, so that could be handy. Maximum queued requests, you can set these if the number of people that are waiting in line. If things are currently clogged up, it'll put them into a queue, and you can set the maximum if you want to, or you can set it to 0 for unlimited, and then you can set your wait time. So apply your limits to your endpoints, well, to your origin, and requests that are being made, so that you can kind of control how many requests are coming in at one time and keep things kind of flowing correctly. So that's handy to have. Let's see here. So this one gives you this warning that it could return personal information, but we're not going to really be storing personal information here. This could, I guess, be applied if you were privatizing information for users on your Bunny, but we're not going to. So we're actually going to use this. This could be really handy. It would speed up the streaming back of the data to the user in a much more efficient and fast way, especially if there's a lot of requests coming in at the same time, which there very well could be for a TikTok type app. And then you can do the lockout timing, which I'm just leave it 30 seconds, that's fine. Alright, now security. You can block the root path of your pool zone if you want to. I'm going to leave it open for now. You can block post requests. I definitely want to leave that open because I am going to be making post requests. You can set blocks on referrers for host names that'll be blocked from accessing the pool zone if you want to. Same thing allowed here. You can set blocked IPs if you want to do that. So kind of a handy way to take care of stuff. I would suggest turning logging on. It's super handy. Anonymize log IPs depends on, I guess, wherever you live and what kind of rules you have going on there. You have to sign this agreement if you want to turn it off. So I usually just leave it on. I have no reason to turn it off. Enable log forwarding if you have someplace you want to send your logs to. We're not going to worry about that. Enable permanent storage for your logs. I'm not going to worry about that right now. So it's really all just about logs, but I would definitely turn that on. It can be very helpful to you. And then SSL, these are automatically already turned on, so I just leave them both on there for now. You can white label your error pages if you want to. I'm not going to do that. Do that with status page, custom errors, stuff like that, but I'm not going to set any of that. S3 authentication, if you're using S3, do that here. Token authentication, again, this goes back if we were going to secure our requests with tokens. We would be setting that up here, but we're not going to do that right now, so just leave that alone. Traffic manager, you can redirect countries if you want to. Redirect them to the cheapest possible node in North America or Europe, so you can go through and select any country and redirect them. Or you can go through here and block countries if you don't want countries other than specific. Like, I live in the US. If I wanted the US and Canada, and that's the only ones I wanted accessing this node, then I could just block everything else. Nobody would be able to access unless, of course, they're using a VPN, in which case they could probably get around that. Alright, headers, I am going to leave that turned on, especially while I'm testing inside of FlutterFlow, because sometimes FlutterFlow causes some problems with cores, even though FlutterFlow tries to say that, you know, they are using a proxy to negate those issues. I found that that doesn't always work with FlutterFlow, so I would just leave that on. It helps. Don't do anything with that. Optimizer is for images, so if you're planning on storing images, stuff that you might want to look at. Cool stuff in here, but we're not using images right now, so I'm not going to worry about any of that. You can also set edge rules, extremely kind of fine-tune how your edge nodes respond to different types of requests. Quite a few options in here, so you can apply some different settings in here. It's kind of handy if you're really building out your CDN, you're wanting a really efficient and robust setup here. But again, that's not what I'm going to show you right now. I'm just going to show you how to put videos on here from from FlutterFlow. So, download speeds. So here you can set up network limits to this library if you want to. You can set the download speed, and if you want to restrict that, I'm going to leave it set at 0 for unlimited. Request limits, number of requests per second. That's usually a good idea to set that, quite frankly. And it really just kind of depends on, I guess, how many. Or I'm sorry, that's for a single IP. I apologize. So that could be iffy, really. I would say that if you're like selling this, again, like subscriptions or something to people and they want to store their stuff here, that might be a good idea. But as I am, the app that I'm building for this tutorial, it's open to anybody. Restricting the request per IP could be a problem if there's a bunch of people connected to a certain IP address, so I probably would not mess with that. Let's see here. Single request over which the client will be rate limited, so you can apply rate limits after a user does something. So a lot of this stuff is, this kind of thing is for yeah, for single IP. That's okay. I got it. Sorry. I thought those things were basically the same, but they're not. A lot of these are really, I think, more specific if you're planning on providing Bunny related services in a more of a subscription manner, rather than a lot of people around the world connecting to it at any point in time without paying that kind of subscription to pay for certain limitations. So so I don't think we'll set any of these burst requests. Now we might set this. We're not going to do it for this tutorial, but that might be worth setting regardless of what kind of service you're providing. Maximum, so that's concurrent, but I'm probably not going to do that either. And then monthly bandwidth limit. So if you wanted to limit the bandwidth, you could do that, but I'm not gonna set that. I really just kind of need it wide open for what we're doing here. And then Bunny has like this AI thing that you can set for image generation and whatever, but we're not using any of that either. So all right, so that's just kind of basic setup that'll get us going here. So now we need to start working within our library here, kind of get things figured out. So let me pull this up. Okay. All right, so what we're going to be doing then to make these calls, played around with FlutterFlow quite a bit when I was figuring this out a while back, and I discovered that ideally we would make an API call to the Bunny endpoint, which I'll explain why we're using a put in just a minute, but we would send it to the Bunny endpoint to actually upload the video. But Bunny expects the content of the call, which would be the body, and that would be multi-part, which would be, I don't really even setting that, but as a multi-part, you can select uploaded file, which multi-part is the only one you can do that with. If you select any of these other ones, uploaded file goes away, and we need uploaded file to be able to attach the byte data for the video to the request. But the problem is that when you use a put request inside of FlutterFlow's API builder, it doesn't recognize the body. Because according to FlutterFlow, their put request just appends the data to the end of the URL. So all it's going to do is take from the variable. Let's see if I can show you what I mean here. So if I were to set this, it doesn't really matter, do whatever. Oops. I thought I named that. I guess not. I need a URL on here, so I'm just going to do. All right, so if I set that as multi-part from variable and bytes, so what I would like for it to do is send a request to this endpoint along with the body here. But when I go over here and I select that, it appends it to the end of the URL. And so it's going to send byte data as a part of the URL, which Bunny does not accept that. It requires it as the body. It doesn't want to see it come through as a part of the URL. So unless FlutterFlow decides to fix that, we cannot actually upload the video using their API builder. So what I did instead was I just wrote a custom Flutter action, which bypasses that issue and handles it correctly to upload the video content. So that's what we'll be using to do that. However, as you saw, it's kind of a two-step process with uploading to Bunny. You can't just directly upload the video. First, you have to create a video object, and so you have to make an initial call, a post request, which sends a request to your Bunny endpoint to create the video object, which is like an empty container that's awaiting data. And then if you successfully do that, it's going to return the video's UID or the GUID. And then you take that video UID and you stick it into your put request, which will then send the byte data to that video container or the video object, and then you'll actually have your video. So it makes sense, but it can be confusing if you don't really know how to work with APIs and things like that. But seems relatively logical, I guess. So what we're going to end up doing then, I played around with this a lot. I'm just trying to figure out the most efficient way and the best way to kind of handle things the way that I really wanted things to work. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to handle the post request as just an API call here. And then we're only going to handle the put request as a custom action. It's just seemed to work better instead of relying on that custom action to handle everything all the way through without it failing midway through or something going wrong. So this kind of eases that process. And on top of that, this could allow a user, let's say they lose internet connectivity right after the post request is made, or their phone dies or whatever. If you wanted to configure your app, if the post request went through, it will return the video ID, and you could set up some an action flow to preserve that video ID as a draft. And so you could save it like as a local state variable or whatever you wanted to do. And then when the user got back online, you could set up your workflow to ask them if they wanted to finish uploading their video or whatever, and then you could utilize that video ID object and not have to create another request like that. So there's a few good things about it. But anyway, so that's one thing we're going to do is post request here in the API call. We also want to securely store our API key. We do not want to pass that directly hard-coded through our app. So we're going to be storing that in Firestore. You could use a key ring. Google offers a key ring if you wanted to dive into Google Cloud and use that. It's not overly complicated, but it's just another step, and it's more money. So I decided to forego that route, and we're just going to store the API key inside of a collection. And then we're gonna make sure that collection's rules are set so that only a cloud function can access it, so that users can't directly access it. And we're going to use SHA-256 encoding, which I'll show you how to do all of that in just a second, and how to set these functions up and everything like that. So there's a little bit of code to go through. Code will be available for free. Links will be in the description of this video. So, all right. So I guess to get started, we should just work from A to Z on this. So probably the best place would be in our collections. And I'm going to be creating 3 new collections for this. We're not going to use any of this stuff. I just kind of made generic names for these collections for this code, which the code is commented out for where you can change variables and things like that. So you don't have to, if you want to name your collection something different, it'll be commented in the code where to do that if you want to make some changes to it. But we need to create 3 collections here. So the first collection, we're going to call it videos. And for this one, the main things that we need for the code, we need video URL. We need, I'm trying to think how these things were labeled. Let's set this up. Let me check out my stuff here real quick. Okay, we need thumbnail URL, which for that, we would set that as an image path so we can utilize FlutterFlow's image objects in there. And then we're going to do isDraft and set it as a bool. And then we'll do upload failed. That's also a bool. And we're going to do video GUID. So for the way that I have these codes configured, these parameters here for this collection are absolutely necessary. Got to have them. But again, you can change them inside the code if you want to. And then we're going to do another collection here, and this one is going to be called user keys. create that one. And we're going to have one parameter called S key string, and then another one is going to be UID string. All right, and then another collection, we will call this API keys. And the fields that we'll have here, we're going to have API type. And then this key, whoops, that's a string. And then the last one will be library ID. All right. So, just to explain real quick, obviously, video URL is a given, thumbnail URL is a given, is draft. When we send a request to actually upload a video, it's going to initiate a webhook from Bunny. And so every time a status of the upload changes, whether the upload goes into queue, or it's successful or it fails, whatever, there's multiple statuses, it's going to trigger that, that webhook and send essentially a status message back to a cloud function that we'll set up. And based off of the status code that the function receives, the function will perform a specific action, or it won't perform anything, just depending on what it gets back. So every time I create an upload, I'm automatically going to set, when I create this document, I'm going to set this to true, because the cloud function that we'll set up, when it receives the correct status code, it'll automatically switch that over to false. Unless, of course, the upload failed, in which case it'll switch this to true. We'll make sure that we set it as false when we create the document. And then video GUID, we'll set that from the returned GUID when we run the put request. And that way, a part of the webhook, it sends back the status ID, and it also sends back the UID for the video for which that status ID was returned. And so we need the function to be able to grab that GUID for that video from the webhook, so it knows which document in the video's collection to update. It'll all make sense in a minute, hopefully. User key, so we have a function that we're going to make a call to that is going to, it's going to take in, and we'll probably do this just in simulation, but when a user first signs up for an account, we'll trigger this function, and it's going to take in the user's UID, and it's going to create a 42 character, which you can set that to whatever you want, but it's going to create a 42 character secret key, the function will, and then it's going to hash that secret key with the UID and spit out a SHA-256 hash code. And then in this function, or I'm sorry, this collection, the function will save the UID parameter, and it'll save the secret key that it generated, the 42 character secret key. And this collection will also be restricted, so only the function can access it. And then the function will return the SHA-256 hash code to the user who made the request, which the user will never actually see that. It'll be stored in app state, persisted app state. So it'll be stored locally on the user's device, and they'll never actually interact with it. So anyway, so the secret key will be stored here, the UID will be stored here. All right, and then API keys is kind of a given. It's going to define what the type is, so that we can have various API keys in this collection if we wanted to. This will define the type of API key it is, so the function knows which one to grab. It'll once it confirms that, then it'll return this key, which is the API key, and it'll return library ID as well, which is the library ID for the setup that we have on Bunny. So the way that it actually does that, when we set up this particular function, is we have a function that's going to send, when it's triggered, it's going to send the SHA-256 hash from the user's app state to a function, and the function is going to, it'll send the hash as well as a UID to the function, and the function will look inside of this user keys collection to find a matching UID to the UID that was passed to the function. If it finds one, then it'll extract the S key, which is a secret key. It'll use that S key to decode the SHA-256. If the secret key does not correspond with that SHA-256, then it won't be able to decode it, or it'll return a bunch of garbage encoding. But if it is able to decode it, then it'll be able to extract the encoded UID, and then the function will further compare the extracted UID to the UID parameter that was passed to it to make sure they match. So it's like a multi-step process to ensure that the request is valid. And then once it confirms that request is valid, then it'll reach over here for this information and return the API key. So that's how we're going to secure our API key, essentially. So it's pretty solid way to store it. I mean, there are other ways, there are definitely more secure ways, depending on how serious you want to get with it. But for what we're doing here, this is a good way to set it up. It's definitely better than encoding it directly to your app. That's kind of an awful idea. Ideally, if you wanted to work with a server, which we're not going to do that here. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, but the way I would traditionally have all this set up is I would actually have a server that my videos would load to first, because I'm probably going to do some pre-encoding to them, like adding music and stuff like that, in which case the API key would be stored over there and it would be attached to the video and sent to Bunny that way. So this is a good way to handle it without having a separate server to do that. Alright, so we've got these things set up here. Going to our rules for this. So videos, that's our videos collection, so we want to give authenticated users access, obviously, to do everything. But for user keys and API keys, because the function it handles this stuff for us. The function either writes, creates, writes, reads, and deletes to those collections. The user doesn't actually interact directly with it. We can actually set this to no one, so nobody can access this. The rules will prevent them. Same thing with API keys. That way, only the functions can interact with these two collections. Let's see. Off, I guess. Doesn't really matter. I mean, we'll just leave it on, whatever. And deploy. Let's send that over. Alright, so we got that set up. It's good. Good to go there. Alright, so the next thing we need to do here, we need to go ahead and pre-add our keys. Obviously, we want to have this stuff in here. So I guess let's go ahead and get that done. We'll go ahead and add a document and get our information in here so that we have it correct, and then we'll start working through all that other stuff here. Alright, let's see here. Okay, sorry. Wasn't sure if I was back recording or not. There we go. Alright, so let me go here and go here. And I'm gonna go right here and go into my Firestore and create it directly in here. So I'm gonna start a collection here which matches up with what I just created in FlutterFlow. And I'm going to set up API keys. It's the one we need right now. And we'll just auto ID that. It doesn't really matter. And do API type. And our API type is going to be video upload, because that's what the code is going to be looking for. And then we will do this key, and we need to get that from here. Let's open that up and close that for now. And we'll go down here and just copy that. And then we will add library ID. And let's see here. And that's up here. All right, should be good to go. Okay. All right, so that's good right now. Let's see here. I think I want to do this. Yeah, just leave it like that for now. Okay, let's go back here. All right, so got my code all written over here to pull over. So very first thing we want to create is a cloud function for generating the SHA-256 hash, as well as the retrieval. So if you haven't done cloud functions yet, I don't think I ever completed a tutorial entirely on how to set it up. So let's see here. First of all, you do want to make sure you have the Blaze plan activated to be able to use functions. So you have to upgrade from Spark and then add functions here. So get started. Skip that. Well, actually, if you haven't ever set it up, if you're planning on using the thing inside of FlutterFlow, I don't do it that way. I use command line. FlutterFlow has a way somewhere in here to be able to, which one is it? Not that. Cloud function. So you can actually set your cloud functions up directly in here, but I don't use this. If you use it, then great, you can do it from here. But I use the command line, so that's what I'm going to actually show you. So if you haven't set it up yet through the command line, then you can follow their instructions right here, and it'll tell you how to get that stuff set up. But how to get it installed. But I'll show you how to actually set up a project and everything from here. So once you have all that ready to go, you've got it installed. Got the command line interface for Firebase. Then you can use whatever command line that you prefer locally. So I'm just going to be using CMD on Windows for this. So whatever kind of terminal that you have for your device is what you'll want to use. And then what you want to do, pull this over, is somewhere in your file explorer, just create a spot to create your function in. So I've just got a path set up, and my folder is called Bunny Tutorial. And for ease of use, I'm just gonna copy the address as text, go back to my command line, and then to navigate to that, I'll type CD and then right click, and it'll drop the path in there, and then enter, and it'll take me to that path. So this is where I'm going to initiate my first function. So to do so, I'm just gonna type Firebase init, right, and yes, just type Y if you're ready to proceed. And then you use your arrow keys to choose what you want here. We're just going to be doing functions, so I'd use spacebar to select it, and then enter to initiate that. And I am going to use an existing project, and I'm going to use, well, where is it? Oh, there it is. A new tutorial app, so I'll select it. I'm going to be doing it in JavaScript. It's up to you whether you want to install this. Yes, lint, I would suggest that you do. It's very helpful. So you just type Y, And then if you want to install the dependencies, do Y. Go ahead and get those installed just in case you need them for something. And now you just have to let this install real quick. You can see while it's installing, if I pull this back up, now we've got some stuff in here in our Bunny tutorial folder. And it takes just a second to finish all that up. Alright, so now we're good to go. So now you'll want to go here in your functions folder. And let's go back to our command line real quick, and we're going to type cd functions, so we go into that folder. Alright, so now that we're in here, what you want to do is you want to open the index.js file in a code editor. I use Notepad++, but whatever you want to use, just make sure it can open this. And let me, whoops. I'm going to drag it into my editor, which once I dragged it over here, it just opened it up, and this is what I'm looking at, so I've got in here. And now I need to look and see, let's see here, which one are we working with first? So it's going to be this one. Alright. So, I've actually got two functions in here. You can actually load up all of your functions into a single file, just so long as you've got your headers up here, the ones that you need. We need crypto for this. These two are standard pretty much across the board, because you have to require Firebase admin as well as the Firebase functions to be able to use a function. But crypto is an added one, and that's the package that we're going to use to be able to encrypt and decrypt. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this, and I'll kind of show you here in just a second. Copy that. So you can see that these two are already here, but I'm just going to overwrite them. I don't want logger, it's not necessary. There we go. Not necessary for what we're doing anyway. You may want to keep logger in there if you want to have detailed logs, but this is what I want in here for now. So the first function, and functions are declared and separated out by exports. So that's how you know a function begins. And if you go down, you can see this function ends here, and then you've got the new one starts right here. So the first function is to generate the user key or the secret key, along with the SHA-256 encoded key. And then a second one is to receive the SHA-256 encoded key and decrypt it, assuming that all of the parameters match up. And it'll decrypt all of that, and it'll return the API key and the library ID if it's successful. Now, all of this should be formatted correctly already, but this is where ESLint comes in handy. So once you get it copied into your index file, just click save, so that you're good to go there. And we'll scoot that back out of the way and go back to our command line here. So if you're starting with fresh code, again, it should be formatted correctly already because I've already done this, but just in case, you can do ESLint -- fix, and then you need the let's go back here, right click and get our copy address and paste it in there, and then type index.js. Alright, so again, what that does is ESLint will attempt to fix quite a few errors if there are errors. Typically, if you're writing new code or copying new code in that hasn't already been formatted, you're going to return a ton of errors. Just because ESLint's going to pick up a lot, and if you do a ESLint fix, it'll fix most of them. You may have to edit a few, but it tells you what the issue is. It tells you what line it's at. I mean, it's really quite easy to resolve. But because we returned no errors, that means it's good to go. So now that we got that in there, we will do Firebase deploy -- only functions. Alright, And since this is my first time uploading a function to this particular project, then it may take a little bit longer than usual. So we just let that run, let it finish up here. Uh-oh. It did not create it for some reason. That's interesting. Why didn't it create it? It could be, it's possible that our Node.js version is not compatible. Okay. Let's go in here real quick and grab our package.json file. Oops. No, sorry. Go back. Well, why isn't it letting me open that? Oh, there we go. All right, bring that back over here. So I dragged the package.json file over into my editor here, and sometimes the Node version will cause an issue. It's currently set to 18. Had this problem before. It doesn't seem to always be a problem. It's kind of weird, but I'm actually just going to change that to like 16, see if that fixes our issue here, and just save it. We can close it out, and then and we can try again here. So let's try again. It's going to take a few minutes sometimes. I'm going to pause the video until this finishes.